Welcome back to College Football Addiction, SEC Championship Week. Gerry Hamilton on Texas football. How you doing, bud?
I'm great, man. It's a big week in the SEC. Two of the iconic uniforms in college football history are playing each other for the second time this year. It doesn't happen much in a regular season where you play twice.
Yeah, and a matchup that a lot of people predicted, a lot of people kind of maybe doubted, like, oh, well, Texas maybe not in year one. They'll have a few losses. Obviously, it didn't impact this, but they got to go to Michigan. They got the rivalry at the end. They got Georgia. Can they navigate the schedule, the Red River, all these things? And here they are, a team that is back in, or not back in Atlanta for the first time in their stay in the SEC. Before we look at that, coming out of the Texas A&M game, 17-7 on the road, it felt like got up 17-0 and then just kind of cruised the rest of the way. Just thoughts coming out of that game. Did you expect more? Do you think, not a lot of points in it? What were your just thoughts coming out of it?
Well, I think on the show with you last week, I said 27-23 Texas. So at least I got that right. I had A&M being more competitive and actually more points scored in the game than what they were. And again, the Texas defense just continues to perform at such an elite level. I mean, it's they're ranked number 2, I guess, in total defense to Ohio State right now. But they're just playing at such an elite level. They have just such great communication and continuity. I think as the sum of the parts is greater than any one player, and they have some really talented guys, multiple future NFL players at all 3 levels. But I think just the communication that group plays with is just so impressive. And I think they really like playing on the road against Texas A&M, if that makes sense. And Texas, arguably, I mean, they left some points on the field in that game. You missed a 47-yard field goal, which could have made it 20-0 at half. Then Quinn had played really well up until the bad stretch. Quinn played. I thought after the first 2 series, once Quinn got his feet underneath him, the ankle brace he was wearing, okay, he felt comfortable with that. I thought he played his best ball since Michigan for about a 2-quarter stretch. And then came that little bad stretch of 2 turnovers in a row, 1 the pick 6. Texas could have easily won that game 31-34 nothing.
No.
And so that was my takeaway is Texas dominated that game until that had the bad stretch with the pick 6, then Quinn fumbled, then they got a punt blocked. But that game could have easily been 31 nothing. With time to go in that game. So Texas, again, is what they're proven to me is they're a mature team. They're an experienced team. And they're a team that really relishes playing on the road. And that's what really tight, connected teams do. This week, which we're about to get into, though, this is going to be an interesting game because of what happened October 19th in Austin.
Yeah, the idea, the optimist says it's the idea at redemption. The pessimist says, oh no, this is the team that we really struggled against, and now we got to play them again. What about Texas is different right now compared to that match? Where they were in October, playing a Georgia team that was everyone's kind of defining team in the SEC.
Yeah, so I think one of the things is they've shored up some offensive line protection issues that popped up in that game, right, where they gave up 7 sacks. Oh. Now, they weren't all on the offensive line. That may have been a tight end that missed, a running back in pass pro. Quinn didn't step up into the pocket. So I think maybe 4 of those sacks were on the offensive line in reality, maybe even 3. But I think they've changed some of their splits late in the season. They've got their run game going. I think they've kind of built a run game identity, if that makes sense. Doing a lot of things I think they would have done with Cedric Baxter, but now Trey Wisner, after Cedric Baxter went down, Jaden Blue took over as RB1. That was a totally different running back than Cedric Baxter. Now, Trey Wisner's not as big as Cedric Baxter, but they're running a lot of the same plays with Trey Wisner that I think were bread and butter with Cedric Baxter as well. Maybe not as much inside zone, but the counters, the outside zones, I think that it's fallen into place late in the season, their run game. But again, here's the challenge this week is, can you establish the run against Georgia? And because the one thing Georgia presents to me, TJ, is it's the only team Texas plays all year that has a strong front against the run. Big bodies, athletic guys. They're not the Georgia 21 or 22 up front, but they've still got NFL players. but their linebackers can condense and close the space and eat up the grass so quick, where Sark likes the perimeter passing game, the screen game. Georgia's linebackers, whether they're blitzing or they're playing in space, presents a whole nother issue for Texas that only Georgia has been able to present from a front seven perspective. From the Georgia side, you know what I think is going to be interesting? Is Kirby Smart was the us against the world. Everybody thinks we're going to get our butt kicked in Austin. Kind of the old John Calipari rallying cry when you have a really talented team, but the whole world's against you. He can't use that this time against Texas. You can't go to that card twice. So what card is he going to go to with his team this go round, other than, hey, they're going to try to come and do the same thing we did to them? Maybe that's all it takes, right? Because it's a home game for Georgia. But Kirby's going to have a different message to his team leading up to this game than he did the first go round.
SEC fans, do me a favor. Right now, while you're watching this video, I'll get right back to chatting with Gerry. I know, big game. I'll shut up real quick. No ad on this video. Nothing for you to buy. Not selling you anything. But if you could do me a favor, I'm starting a brand new channel with my friend Allie Peak from A Peak Inside the Florida Gators. She comes on and talks to the Gators with us a ton. You guys have probably seen her videos, whether you are watching a Georgia preview or a Texas preview. She is starting an SEC channel, A Peek Inside the SEC. I'm going to be on there with her a ton. We're going to be debating the SEC, this, that, and the other. Obviously, the best conference in college football. Do me a favor. If you appreciate this video, if you appreciate the content that we've put out all year, subscribe to that. Our first show is coming up Sunday. We're going to be talking about both these teams, Georgia and Texas, in the playoffs, where they're at. Do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button. I'll link it above me right now. I'll link it in the comments, and I'll link it in the description. A Peek Inside the SEC. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about like Kirby, with as much talent as they have, being able to sell the underdog, right? And be able to tell. Remember when he, convinced the most talented team of all time? They were somehow going 7-5 or something, and nobody believed in him. Looking at this much bigger picture, zooming way out, both these teams are safe for the playoff. Yes. And I understand you want to get the bye, right? Like you want to get probably the number 2 overall seed if we assume that Oregon wins. You certainly want that. But does both teams being safe kind of eliminate some of the drama for this game? Like, whereas maybe, it's still the SEC championship, right? Like, we're not going to sugarcoat that. But like SMU and Clemson both feel like they need to win, right, to get in. And same thing with the Big 12. Like, that is a play-in game. Is some of the drama for the Big 10 and the SEC kind of gone this week?
Well, it's interesting. I think there's actually a lot on the line for Georgia from that perspective this week, because if they win, obviously they get the bye. And you're the SEC champion, blah, blah, blah. But we're talking about playoffs now. You get the bye. If they lose, they have 3 losses. They can end up not hosting a first-round game potentially. I think that's out there as a possibility for them. So maybe there's a lot on the line there. I think for Texas, it's pretty simple. If they win, they're the 2 seed, as long as Oregon beats Penn State. We're all waiting on James Franklin to win one of those games, right? Maybe he breaks through this week. But so let's just say Texas wins and they're the 2 seed. But if they lose, I still think they're going to host. And in that scenario, I think Notre Dame would jump them and be the 5, and Texas would be the 6. But the 6 is not a bad place to play from. Sure. If you're like the 11's Indiana, and then you play the ACC champ. After that is the 3, whether that's SMU or Clemson. Or is Boise the 3 if Clemson wins the
Clemson gets in.
The 6 seed is not a bad place to be, because you host a first-round game, and then that second-round game you'll be favored in as well. So Texas, obviously, they would love nothing more than to hoist the SEC championship in year 1. That would kind of be the ultimate old double rod statement, right? Like, hey, we're here, you didn't think we're ready type of deal. So there's no doubt they want to be on the podium with the trophy. But I think as far as playoff seeding goes, if I was Georgia, the thing I wouldn't want if I lose is to be sent to a game up north in like a Penn State in an 8-9 game where you have no idea what the weather's going to be and you don't play up there. So I think there's more on the line from a seeding standpoint for Georgia. For Texas, they want to win this game. Yeah.
What about, Beck has struggled a lot and been pretty inconsistent. Man, they've been prone to bad starts. I mean, Georgia Tech, kind of took them obviously to the wire, but Georgia Tech had the big lead. Tennessee got out to a good start against them. Ole Miss got out to a good start. Florida got out to a good start. Obviously they got out to a good start against Texas when that happened, but that's a pretty big key. It feels like Georgia playing with the lead or Texas being able to play with the lead would be huge in this one.
Yes. Yeah, I think the last game, Quinn did not have a good game. Sark actually had to pull him, which is, as a third-year starting quarterback, that's about as bad a scenario as it gets, right? But then on the flip side, Carson Beck had 3 interceptions. Now, Georgia drops more passes than any team in America. And in that first meeting, they dropped like 5 or 6, and 3 of them would have been first downs. So Carson Beck still hasn't had a lot of help this year from his wide receiver core. But I do think, to your point, whichever quarterback gets off to a fast start in this game is going to be really big. Because both those guys have a redemption type of game in front of them from the last one, because Carson Beck was going through a really rough stretch. I mean, he had 12 interceptions over, a 5-game period, I think, in SEC play. Now, his last 3 are really good, including one non-con game. He seems to turn the corner. I think it's because Georgia's running the football better and helping him out a little bit more. But I do think, to your point, the quarterback that gets off to the fast start in this game, I think has an advantage for sure.
Yeah, their running attack is a little bit banged up, but their true freshman and Nate Frazier is really still good. Incredibly good. Obviously, won the game for them against Georgia Tech, and maybe again, I'll even question myself for even asking about the drama being out, because I do think this game is going to be phenomenal and will mean a lot when the guys get on the field. But yeah, I do wonder that too, like how big of an impact does that Georgia rushing attack make against a really good Texas front? Because Frazier's is unreal, but with some of the other injuries and things that they've had go on there, does that kind of limit them? The lack of weapons they've had. There's a lot of focus on Beck, but with all the talent they lost to the NFL, with the guys that are in trouble or hurt or just not there this year, it's easy to point the finger at him when they've had a lot of other things kind of go wrong on that front as well.
I think if there was one thing, maybe the Georgia fan base, but Kirby would love to see Saturday, it's his wide receivers catch every pass. That has been a real struggle for this team. Yeah. And when you have a quarterback that's kind of going through it in the middle part of the season, wide receivers that aren't helping him out makes it even worse. I would bet if you had Kirby on here right now, you'd say it would be really good if our guys could catch a dang ball Saturday. Because I think Georgia thinks they can move the ball and beat anybody if they catch the football, if they make these simple plays at wide receiver, which has been their struggle this year.
Last one I've got for you on the game is I wouldn't think so at Texas, and maybe playing obviously in the Red River every year and then playing at A&M this year and things like that. But like Georgia's been there and done that here in this game specifically. And Texas wasn't even there every year in the Big 12 championship. Like, you would think that with it being Texas, there's no real lights too bright situation, but is that a worry at all? Georgia just haven't been there, done that?
No, I don't think so with this Texas team. Look, Texas was in the wilderness for about 15 years, right? But Sark's brought them back. I don't think so with this Texas team. Look, they played at Alabama and won. They played at Michigan and won. It was the Big 12 last year, but they still call upon the Big 12 championship. They played in the college football playoff game. I don't think so. And I actually think this game being in Atlanta, I think Texas actually plays good on the road, away from Austin, away from all the people. Because one thing about Texas, University of Texas, when you're playing well, there's a lot of backs padded, right? And so sometimes those teams that are really tight and connected play better on the road. I don't think so. I think this is, it's an interesting game because it's a different team, but Georgia lost their playoff hopes in this game last year against Alabama.
Yeah.
And I kind of looking for what Kirby's going to have for his team, right? What's he going to draw upon this week? And maybe that's it. Look, guys, maybe he's like, the committee's not going to look for a reason to put us in or something like that. I don't know what he would say, but maybe trying to bring out the best in this group one more time in this regular season. But I don't think the lights are too bright for Texas at all. I actually think Sark is coaching from a great spot this week because his team kind of got beat up and bullied a little bit in Austin, or a lot of it, depending on who you talk to. And that's a really good scenario when you play a team a second time for the coach coaching that team. It doesn't take much to get his kids up this week.
Yeah. Do you, I know it's early in the week, do you have Texas getting revenge and winning their first SEC title?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm on Texas football. If I don't pick them, I get heckled.
I was going to say,
I think
read you out of town.
I think it's a toss-up game. What's the line, 2.5?
Yeah.
Vegas seems to think it's going to be a more higher scoring game. Maybe it's because Georgia Tech's coming off 8 overtimes. It's late in the season. Maybe they're figuring, guys, you know, these teams have played twice, so they're going to know each other better, score more points. I'm going to say, I'll say 24-21 Texas in a barn burner.
I like it. I'll take 34-31 just so I
You
just
think it's going to be a little higher scoring?
Yeah, I just want more points. I don't,
Yeah.
I want to, give me all the touchdowns. So, Gerry, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work, bud?
Yeah, on Texas football, YouTube on texasfootball.com. But the YouTube channel, we're closing on 65,000. Thanks for the continued support out there all. We had Paul Feinbaum on this morning. So we're having a lot of fun this week leading up to the SEC championship and on into the playoffs. So on Texas football YouTube channel.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
One more quick reminder. If you're watching this, I'm linking it again at the end of the video, a peek inside the SEC. Hit the subscribe button right here so that you don't miss our first video, our first show on Sunday night. Thanks, guys.